The day is February 28, 2015, and one of the biggest video game tournaments in the history of South Carolina is about to go straight to hell. What had started off as a landmark day for the Smash Brothers scene in South Carolina will slowly and painfully devolve into embarrassment and misery. Just a few hours into the event, it will become clear that the event staff are in over their heads, and the tourney will fly apart at the seams. Eventually, the inmates will take over the asylum, and the name Olympus will become synonymous with grandiose overpromising and ineptitude in the years to come. But how did this all happen? How did it come to this? And why did it ruin the upstate South Carolina Smash scene for years to come? Despite its infamy today in the Smash Brothers scene, the very first Olympus esports tournament in 2015 showed no signs of drama in its build-up. In fact, hopes were high for that event. I should know I was heavily involved in running it. So first, a little backstory on me. In 2014, I was asked to help out with a video game tournament at 1UP Games in Greenville, South Carolina, by the guy who owned the store, Brandon Overly. We had been friends since kindergarten, and when he hit me up and offered $50 for the gig, I could hardly say no. At the time, I was a broke-ass college dropout working 2 part-time jobs and just barely scraping by. So when I had the opportunity to make $50 at a video game tournament, I jumped at the opportunity. My duties involved managing a section of the bracket of the main double elimination tournament. I'd send players to their correct stations, record the results, and move the bracket along. The show went a little late. I think I clocked nearly 9 hours that day, but making money off of video games was just too fun of a prospect to pass up. When the next tournament came around, I quickly let Brandon know that I was interested in working again. By the end of the year, I'd gotten so efficient in running brackets that I was now getting paid damn near $100 to run these tournaments, because I had developed a reputation for getting the shows done on time or ahead of schedule. I also didn't need a whole lot of help, so a tournament organizer could hire my services for a reasonable fee, have a few volunteers fill in the gaps in manpower, and just watch the money roll in with venue fees, tournament entry fees, and concessions. I ran a lot of tournaments in a fairly short period of time and for all sorts of different games. Guilty Gear, Street Fighter V, Marvel vs. Capcom, Call of Duty Black Ops, Halo 3, but the biggest earner by far was Super Smash Bros. Melee. Released in 2001 on the GameCube, the premise of the game was fairly simple. Take all of the characters from Nintendo's intellectual properties and pit them against each other in a fighting game. You could have Pikachu vs. Mario, Donkey Kong vs. Kirby, or Star Fox vs. Bowser. It had a big roster of characters for the time and it was a massive hit upon release. But wait, this is 2014. People were still playing a 13-year-old game then? Yeah, and they still do. Melee was a fairly rushed product. The original Smash Brothers had been released on the Nintendo 64 in 1999, and in less than 2 years the developers had to build a brand new addition to the series for a new console. The result was Smash Bros. Melee, a game that was an absolute masterpiece. And by 2014, pretty much all of its secrets had been found out by gamers, and the level of play top echelon players are now capable of is honestly jaw-dropping. Smash Brothers tournaments always got tons of entrants. Street Fighter V or Marvel vs. Capcom might get 20 or 30 people to show up, but Smash Brothers routinely brought in 50, 70, sometimes even 80 people. Whether these tournaments were held in Greenville at 1UP Games, the Tech Shack in Clemson, or in Charleston or Columbia, the Smash Bros. Scene in South Carolina was a big frickin' deal, and it made some serious cheddar. Another big tournament organizer in the scene was Evan Tripp. Many of my subscribers will know him as the cameraman for my on-location shoots. He helped the Tech Shack in Clemson organize Tiger Smash, a series of Smash tournaments that I helped run that easily drew in 70 entrants at a time. But in December of 2014, Evan lets me in on a little secret. He's working with a professional Smash player named Matt Sharp, aka Star-Lord, to organize Olympus, a massive event that will draw in over 150 unique players with tournaments for nearly every Smash game ever released up to that point. Melee, Project M, a mod for Smash Bros. Brawl, and the newly released Smash Bros. 4 for the Wii U. Evan and Matt are hyped as hell for this. They even rent out a venue to deal with the massive crowd, the Clemson Arts Center. This location had a big central room complete with a stage where organizers would sit and a streaming setup with commentators who would have the biggest matches of the day broadcasted live on Twitch. In January, the event is beginning to take shape and more people are generating buzz about Olympus. And it's not just a bunch of scrubs from the tri-state area either. Big nationally recognized players have also committed to the tournament. Players like Twitch, Fatality, ESAM, Drugged Fox, and many others. These guys will go on to be some of the highest ranked Smash players in the world in the ensuing years. But even in 2015, they were a big deal. Matt Sharp, who holds a lot of sway in the community under the tag Star-Lord, is also making a lot of noise about the event online. In mid-February, Evan tells me that he has nearly 100 people already pre-registered for the event, meaning that they're already in the system and only need to show up on the day of show. But this should have been our first red flag. By week of show, your total number of pre-registered players will be about half of the total people who show up on game day. The Monday before the event, we have 120 pre-registered players. Evan and Matt were originally expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of 150, but now it looks like more than 200 will show up. There are overflow rooms available, and Matt and Evan seem like they're set and ready to deal with the extra crowd size when I asked them about it. But it's worth noting that they aren't just making money on entry fees. There's also a venue fee of $10. so they make money on every person that enters the art center that day, whether they're running in the tournament or not. The showrunners are financially incentivized to get as many people through the door as possible. This would end up being the single biggest fatal flaw in the entire tournament. But whatever, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, I think to myself. I'm sure we'll figure it out. Friday night, February 27th, the day before show, I roll into Clemson with Evan, Matt Sharp, and two of our mutual friends, Josh Bradbury and Will Wallace. They're here to set up before the big day and to help organize things on game day. We're all paid $100 each for our troubles, making it just 5 full-time TOs on the floor. But we have some help. Some people will have their venue fee waived and act as assistant TOs, but they'll also be running bracket in the tournament. While they're not playing, they'll be helping. We start setting up tables, TVs, and game cubes along the outer walls of the main hall. I want a central island in the middle of the floor with an additional 8 setups, but Evan tells me there's no way to protect the cables on the floor that would have to be run out to the island. Plus, we need the extra floor space to deal with the massive crowd. Another guy is there setting up coolers all over the place. He works with Red Bull, the energy drink company, and is just there to supply free energy drinks for some brand recognition. But one small problem. He's brought the wrong brand of Red Bull. He pulls all of his materials as we're still setting up unfolding tables and chairs, and he'll have to drive all night back to Charlotte to get the right stuff and bring it back on the day of the tournament. That poor bastard. As we're finishing setting up the room, the manager of the venue tells us to pack up and move everything. What? Why? Well, there's a poetry reading happening tonight in the main hall, and he wasn't told we were converting the venue tonight. Apparently, some sort of horrific miscommunication had occurred. We ask if we can just wait it out and set up later, but this poetry deal is going to take hours. We pile everything back up into our vehicles and agree to set up everything on the day of show. We'll show up 2 hours early and get it done. Myself, Josh, and Will had driven 45 minutes from out of town to help that night, and all for naught. We go our separate ways to rest up before the big day. Well, all of us except Evan. Evan had invited a few Smash players from out of town to crash at his place before the event. Except that during his communication with them, several more people had been quote-unquote invited to stay at Evan's residence. There's more than a dozen people at that 2-bedroom condo, and they're playing Smash and roughhousing well into the night. Some don't show up until 1 a.m. There's so many people at Evan's place that some are even sleeping on the stairs. At 7 a.m., myself, Will Wallace, and Josh Bradbury roll up to the venue, and Evan and Matt Sharp are unlocking the doors. We get everything hooked up and powered on by 9 a.m., but another problem arises. We don't have enough setups. Game cubes and 14-year-old copies of Melee don't exactly grow on trees, so we can't just run out and buy more. But Matt and Evan say that's taken care of. They've offered to have the door fee of anybody who brings in a complete setup. TV, GameCube, and a copy of Smash. Wait, hold up, another group of people getting their door fees waived? So we're chipping away at our main source of revenue. Yep, and there's no cap on how many setups can be brought in. Plus, we don't know who has what. Potentially everybody could have their door fees cut in half if they brought the right electronics. The first tournament is supposed to begin at 11:30 a.m., so we have a good chunk of time to get people registered and hook up their setups. I'm instructed to do registration. I put everybody into an online bracket manager called Challenge and write everybody's name down by hand as well so I can do a manual bracket if need be. But wait, I was supposed to be managing the tournament itself, get people where they need to be and hurry the bracket along. That's my strong suit, not doing the menial but very necessary job of registration. That's something one of the assistant TOs should be doing. But Matt assures me that registration will be done with quick and you can go back to running bracket as soon as it's all said and done. We open up the doors and start registering people at 9 a.m. sharp. There's a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people. It was hours before I could even see the end of the line. So many people, in fact, that people are coming up to us by 10 a.m. saying that there's nowhere to park, and they weren't wrong. The Clemson Art Center's parking lot was barely enough for the staff. How are we supposed to park 150 players here? Matt and Evan instruct everybody to park at a shopping center on Highway 28 just next door, but we never gave anybody at that location a heads up as to what we were doing. We kinda just told people to park there and prayed that nobody got towed. Also, this is done by word of mouth and a loudspeaker. Facebook posts are made, but by now it's way too late. People are parking all over the grounds, all up and down Butler and Gant streets. It's honestly a miracle we didn't get the cops called on us for creating a massive traffic jam of parked cars in the area. But while all this is going on, I'm working registration for 1 hour, then 2, and then 3 hours. Melee Doubles has already started and I'm still not even close to done. Finally, at nearly 1 p.m., it's finished. No new people come through the door. The final tally of unique players at that event isn't 150, it's 260. We are in no way, shape, or form prepared to deal with this many people, most of which come from out of state. The Georgia scene had come out in force, and people all over the Atlanta, Marietta, and Gainesville areas are here for their very first tournament in South Carolina. Plus, we don't just have 260 people here, we have 260 people plus their entourages. It's impossible to tell, but there's at least 320 people there by most estimates. Despite the cold February air outside, the inside of the venue is already starting to get hot and humid with that many people crowded inside. If the fire marshal got called, we would almost certainly have been shut down for being over capacity. But during registration, I also had to take care of giving out discounts to people who brought setups. I'm directing those people to Josh and Will, who have to pick places to place the systems. One kid even brings a 30-inch tube TV on a pair of hand trucks as his setup. I hear Josh say over my shoulder, "Hell no, get that thing out of here." The kid protests, saying that he brought a full setup and wants his discount. Josh simply says, "Yeah, sure, we'll give you the $5, just get that thing out of the way." Before long, all of the overflow rooms are filled too, and now we're having to turn people away who brought full setups. About 30 setups get turned away, but to avoid the ire of any players, we still give them a discount. About 60 people get their venue fees cut in half. Melee doubles ends an hour late, and melee singles are started at least 2 hours behind schedule. 150 people have registered just for that tournament alone. I try to get a hold of Matt Sharp during the ordeal, but there's one big problem. Matt Sharp is participating in the tournament. He's only running in the doubles tournaments, but we need him working on the floor. Unfortunately, he's paired with Esam, an extremely talented player who easily places the duo into finals, taking up the maximum amount of time away from Matt. But wait, what about all those volunteer assistant TOs? Well, they're not wearing any staff t-shirts, there's no way to identify them, they don't have any walkie-talkies, and we don't have their cell phone numbers to text them, so there's no way to communicate with them either. Every single assistant TO might as well have stayed out in their car. I never talked to a single one. They were far more interested in playing in bracket than helping. A good chunk of them were from the same group that had driven all the way from Myrtle Beach clear on the other side of the state. When they all got eliminated early, they just dipped and left us for dead. Even if we could text the assistant TOs, there's no guarantee we could have gotten a hold of them. Self-service was garbage all day, and the Wi-Fi at the venue is overloaded almost immediately. Evan runs the entire tournament, challenge brackets, Twitch streams and all, off of a Wi-Fi hotspot on his phone. At one point, the stream dies on Twitch altogether. Not to mention, with the influx of extra setups at the last second, there are entire setups that are hooked up but aren't in the registry, and aren't running bracket matches. Those unused setups get commandeered by players wanting to play friendly and money matches outside of bracket. One thing to remember about Smash players is that they live for Smash. They want to play it 24/7. So when we find a free setup to run bracket matches on, we have to shoo away a bunch of players trying to play friendlies, get the attention of the tournament entrants, corral them to the setup, and then shoo away the new Smash players who've already taken up residence at that setup again. It was like trying to play whack-a-mole on dozens of different machines at once, while also trying to herd cats at the same time. A tough task in the best of times, but almost impossible with nearly 300 bodies crammed into the same tiny space and TOs that are completely out of the picture. At one point around 4 or 5 p.m., Evan spots Will moving dividers outside to the backyard of the venue. Evan asks Will what he's doing. Will responds, "We need these to keep the sun out of people's eyes." "What?" Evan asks, not understanding what's going on. Will takes Evan outside. Somebody has run an extension cord outside, and there are several stations set up outdoors. Evan asks Will, "Are these tournaments in bracket?" Will answers dejectedly, "I don't know, and I really don't care at this point." I never found any pictures of the impromptu setups outside, but if you have any evidence of them, hit me up on Twitter. I absolutely have to have them. Melee singles is a complete mess. By 6 p.m., Matt and Evan tell me they have it under control and want me to organize Smash 4 singles, which are already running an hour behind. Smash 4 was the newest game in the series that had just released a few months ago. As such, this game requires HD flat screens and newer consoles. Thankfully, the players have the setups in spades, but the overflow rooms are all taken, so I grab Josh and Will and we start putting together setups in the hallways. Smash 4 singles was run entirely in the hallways in the foyer of the venue. I, Josh, and Will did the best we could, but it was really the players who banded together and made it all happen. They played fast and clean and had runners who would tell us the results of the match and relay back who was to take the setup next. The actions of the players there that night were admirable as they helped us get that tournament underway and completed in a relatively reasonable amount of time. We admittedly made some mistakes that night, like not advancing Loco into the final bracket by accident, but looking back at it, that one tournament was the lone bright spot on the whole day. I cannot thank those players enough for their actions there that night. They made that tournament go like clockwork. I just merely moved names around in a bracket. About halfway through the Smash 4 tournament, I find Matt Sharp and ask him how Project M singles is going. At this point, only PM singles and doubles are left. He answers, "We're about halfway done." I relay this information to Evan and he breathes a sigh of relief. As we enter the final few rounds of Smash 4 a couple of hours later, I go back to Matt and ask how PM singles is going. He says, "We just started." "What? How? You said you were halfway done." Matt says an assistant TO had told him that they were running singles, so he kept playing in his doubles match. As soon as he realized a screw up, he canceled the final bit of PM doubles and split the pot 5 ways. I was at a loss for words. It was well past 9 p.m. at this point. Melee singles had taken 7 hours to complete, and PM singles had a similar number of players and was going to take just as long. There is no hope of getting it done. I am now on a sinking ship with no damage control options left. All that is left to do is watch the bow sink under the waves, take my $100 check, and swim ashore in the wee hours of the morning. I can hardly bring myself to tell Evan the news. Instead, I tell Josh, who gives him the bad news for me. We have to be out of the venue by midnight. But Evan talks with the manager of the property and negotiates another hour. But 1 a.m. is the hard cutoff. We have to be packed up and out of the venue by then. The manager is locking the doors at 1 a.m. regardless of who or what is still inside. At midnight, PM Singles has finished its pools and moves to a 32-man double elimination bracket, but Evan and Matt call it quits. The prize pot will be split 32 ways, that's final, making the final payout $15 per person, just enough to cover the venue fee and the entry fee. Some players beg Evan to continue the tournament over at his house, but Evan has had enough and refuses. It'll be 1 a.m. by the time the venue is cleared out, and 1:30 by the time he rolls back to his apartment. He's had it, and so have the TOs. The final results have Twitch as the Melee Singles champ, Twitch and Drugged Fox won Melee doubles, ESAM won Smash 4 singles, Project M singles and doubles both had to be scrapped. As me and Josh are packing up the setups that belong to Olympus, some people are even still trying to play friendly matches as we try to herd people out the door. Josh unceremoniously rips an extension cord from the wall, plunging the final few friendly matches into darkness. After some vulgarities are exchanged, the final few holdouts leave the venue. At 1 a.m. on the dot, we get the last setups loaded into Evan's CRV. We kind of just stand there a while not knowing what to say. Evan hands me, Josh, and Will Benjamin a piece, and we all head back to our homes. Josh and I were roommates at the time, and we had driven to the tournament together. We didn't say much on the ride back. It was a total disaster, and there wasn't much left to discuss. Plus, we were just too tired. What few stories we do exchange were just us venting from the whole ordeal. We try to piece together what went wrong, but we soon realized that listing what went right would make for a shorter list. On the 45-minute drive back to Pattersville from Clemson, we spot one bright spot on the way back, the welcoming red neon glow of a Jack in the Box. We stop for a consolatory burger, but my stomach is so tore up from drinking Red Bull all day that I can't even finish it. I come home, pick up an Amazon package at my door that thankfully hadn't been stolen, and fall face first onto my bed. I drift off to sleep thanks to pure exhaustion. The next day, the reviews are starting to trickle in on Smash boards and social media. Olympus was the worst Smash tournament in the history of South Carolina, bar none. The players from Georgia are ripping us to shreds. Evan and Matt go completely dark, not even attempting to do damage control for fear of further antagonizing people. And chief among the angry tournament goers is Fatality, one of the biggest names in the Smash community both then and now. He was there and his scathing review of the tournament was entirely earned. But to his credit, he did give us some constructive criticism. There should have been a player cap, the venue was too small, and we barely had enough staff to keep the place going. In the months that ensued, Evan laid low but eventually got back into holding tournaments, and had quite a bit of success in later years, having learned from his mistakes in 2015. He also knew not to even go near the Olympus name for future tournaments. Instead, he focused on using Olympus as the brand for his esports team. He had some success with the guys on his roster, winning at the smaller tournaments and placing well at the bigger ones, but in 2020, Evan sold off the team to pursue other opportunities. As for me, I never ran another tournament ever again. The reputation of the upstate Smash scene was pretty well tarnished by that point. Smash Carolina and Tiger Smash quickly fizzled out. Players from out of state were burned too badly to come back and give it another go, and the big time players knew to stay away. Fatality's disgust at Olympus was echoed by most, but some people admitted they had a good time, and a few even tried to run defense for us. Evan told me sometime later that after a vase had been broken in one of the runoff rooms, he ended up only netting $1K for the event. Considering the headache that it was, the months of planning that had gone into it, and the damage to his reputation, it was hardly worth it. I had received $100 for what had been a 16-hour workday, and even if another tournament had popped up, I probably would have declined to help out anyway. That was really all there was to it. To anybody who attended that tournament and happens across this video, I'd like to just say this. I'm sorry, and I hope you're in a situation now where you can look back on it and laugh. It'll make for a good story at parties, I'm sure. We bit off more than we could chew, and at any point any one of us could have stepped up to say so. The writing was on the wall early on, but we were so blinded by the money and the glory that nobody wanted to speak up. We dreamed big, but flew too close to the sun. Anyway, that about wraps it up. I'm Slapshoes, and I'm sorry you had to watch this.